Reloading a flintlock pistol took up to 20 seconds. In the chaos of a boarding action, you didn't have 8. When gunpowder failed, the real fight began. In the next 10 minutes, we'll unveil the arsenal of brutality pirates used when they had to rely on nothing but steel and fury. And you'll discover which weapon was designed not to kill, but to shatter the enemy's will to fight. 20 seconds. And that's if you had nerves of steel and dry powder. Trying to reload a pistol in battle was like threading a needle during an earthquake. In fact, the expression, "a flash in the pan," comes from this very moment, when the powder in the priming pan ignited, but the main charge failed to fire. At that point, your pistol became a very expensive club. So when the gunpowder smoke cleared and survival depended on what was in your hand, it wasn't the weapon or strength that separated the victor from the victim in the bloody chaos of close combat. It was something much more primal. The shift from a firefight to a melee was like a chess match suddenly erupting into a bar brawl. All strategy and calculation vanished, leaving only raw instinct and whatever weapons came to hand. We'll examine more than just the obvious axes and cutlasses. We'll see how a simple piece of wood could be more fearsome than a blade, learn why the perfect pirate sword was short and curved, and understand how pirates won battles before they even drew their weapons. We'll even look into Blackbeard's arsenal of cocktails, and not the rum kind. We're talking about grenades made from bottles packed with gunpowder, shot, and nails, the ancestors of modern fragmentation grenades. Let's start with the most brutal argument in their arsenal. The boarding axe was a tool that didn't distinguish between a cabin door and a human skull. Its key features were a short handle for fighting in the tight quarters of a ship's deck and a heavy blade designed to splinter wood. A typical boarding axe weighed 2 to 3 pounds with a handle just 20 to 24 inches long. This wasn't some crude pirate invention. It was a standard issue weapon, even in Britain's Royal Navy. Pirates often turned the very same weapon sailors were required to carry against them. Using a boarding axe wasn't fencing, it was demolition. The goal wasn't to find a weak spot, but to create one. Swings were wide and aimed at limbs, collarbones, and joints. The blade not only chopped, but could also get stuck, allowing a pirate to wrench a shield or weapon from an enemy's grasp. A skilled pirate would use the axe to hack at the rigging directly above their opponents, bringing heavy spars and blocks crashing down on them. The ship itself became a weapon. Now, imagine yourself for a moment as a defending sailor. You see a man charging at you with what looks like a wood-splitting tool. He isn't trying to fence. He wants to break you like a dry twig. The psychological impact of such a brutish weapon was immense. It screamed, "I don't need rules, I need results." It's the difference between a surgeon with a scalpel and a butcher with a cleaver. Both can kill, but the cleaver carries a completely different level of primal terror. It doesn't leave clean wounds, it turns a person into an object to be hacked apart. On the back of the axe was a sharp spike, whose dual purpose made the weapon even deadlier. First, it could pierce light armor or a helmet where the wide blade might fail. Its shape, known as a crow's beak, was designed to work like a can opener on armor. Second, and more importantly, it could be used to hook onto a ship's rail, rigging, or even an opponent to pull them closer. After the battle, the same spike was perfect for prying open chests of loot. It was the Swiss Army knife of maritime robbery. The axe was the weapon of choice for raw, crushing force. But what if there were many enemies, crowded together? For that chaos, a blade was created that cinematic history constantly gets wrong. A blade that was actually closer to a machete than an elegant saber, and whose name comes from an Italian word simply meaning big knife. Compare it to a nobleman's elegant rapier. The rapier is a dueling weapon, designed for a precise thrust. It needs space. The cutlass was its complete opposite, short, heavy, with a wide, curved blade. If the rapier is a surgeon's needle, the cutlass is a lawnmower blade. One is made for a pinpoint strike, the other is for indiscriminately cutting down everything in its path. Its very name, cutlass, derives from the Italian coltellaccio, a large, ugly knife. The description is exhaustive. Its length, around 28 inches, kept the blade from getting tangled in ropes and cabin walls. The wide blade inflicted ragged wounds that caused immediate shock and massive bleeding. The center of gravity was deliberately shifted toward the tip, turning every swing into a devastating machete-like chop. In essence, a cutlass is balanced less like a fencing blade and more like a baseball bat. Its entire physics is built around a single, powerful cutting motion. Let's do a thought experiment. Stand in a doorway. Try to imagine lunging with a long sword. It's awkward. Now, imagine you have a short, heavy cleaver in your hand, and all you need to do is hack at anything that moves at waist level. That is the philosophy of the cutlass, the philosophy of a meat grinder. It's no wonder that even the Royal Navy officially adopted it. It remained in service for over a century. Now, look at the hilt. A massive, bowl-shaped guard protected more than just the fingers. In the crush of a fight, when blades were locked, a pirate would smash this guard directly into an opponent's face. It was a hybrid of a sword and brass knuckles. Some pirates even sharpened its edges. Such a blow didn't just stun, it sliced a man's face open. But what if a pirate lost both his axe and his cutlass? He wouldn't surrender. He would look around, and the ship itself would become his weapon. He entered a state of opportunistic armament. To him, the deck became a buffet of weaponry where the main course was desperation. And some of these improvisations were more terrifying than any steel. For a pirate in battle, there were no inanimate objects. Any heavy, sturdy, or sharp item was instantly reclassified as a weapon. A pirate on deck saw the world like Jackie Chan in a room full of furniture. Every object was an opportunity. The most accessible of these was the belaying pin, a heavy wooden or metal rod used to secure rigging. They were everywhere, set in racks along the ship's rail. It was the perfect club, the right weight, a comfortable grip. A blow from such an object didn't leave clean wounds. It shattered bones and caused internal bleeding. Belaying pins were often made from the world's densest wood, lignum vitae, which sinks in water. Weighing up to 2 pounds, such a pin was the 18th century equivalent of a baseball bat or a crowbar. Most importantly, it was a weapon hidden in plain sight. No one could accuse you of carrying a club. Another improvised weapon was the grappling hook. On a short rope, it was a fearsome tool. It could be swung and thrown to snag an opponent and pull them off their feet. The very sight of a multi-pronged hook flying toward you induced panic. A smaller handheld hook, sometimes called a cat, was even more cunning. A skilled pirate could throw it to hook not the person, but their weapon, ripping it from their hands. It was essentially a medieval flail, but with the function of disarming and controlling distance. Let's create a brutality scale. The cutlass, a 7 out of 10, it cuts. The axe, an 8 out of 10, it chops and crushes, but a simple belaying pin gets a 9 out of 10. Why? Because a blow from a heavy, blunt object carries a primal horror. It doesn't pierce, it pulps. It's a weapon of pure rage, not tactics. From a medical standpoint, this is absolutely correct. In the unsanitary conditions of the 18th century, a clean cut could be stitched, and there was a chance of survival. But a shattered bone, internal bleeding, and massive blunt force trauma were impossible to treat at sea. It was a guarantee of a slow, agonizing death. All of these were tools of physical destruction, but the most cunning captains, like Blackbeard, knew that the body was merely a vessel. Their primary weapon was aimed directly at the enemy's soul. As the old sea saying went, the loudest volley in a pirate's arsenal was the roar of his reputation. Edward Teach, known as Blackbeard, turned himself into a living weapon. Before a battle, he would weave slow-burning fuses into his thick beard and light them. These were ordinary cannon fuses, smoldering cords soaked in saltpeter. They didn't burn with a flame but smoked ominously, shrouding his head in a cloud of acrid smoke. Blackbeard was, in essence, a master of branding, history's first shock rocker. And the Jolly Roger flag was his logo, an ultimatum that said, "Surrender now, or there will be no mercy." Every captain had his own brand. Calico Jack had a skull and crossed cutlasses. Bartholomew Roberts had a figure of himself standing on 2 skulls. When this living demon led his men in a boarding action, sound came into play. The entire crew would let out a coordinated, inhuman roar. It was a biological DDoS attack on the enemy's brain. The deafening noise overwhelms the senses and triggers an instinctual fight-or-flight response. Many pirate ships had musicians. During a battle, they didn't play cheerful shanties, but the loudest, most dissonant cacophony possible, adding auditory terror to the chaos. But if fear wasn't enough and a merchant crew decided to resist, pirates resorted to exemplary punishment. Captain Edward Lowe was a genius of this theater of horror. He might cut off a victim's ears, fry them, and force him to eat them. This wasn't sadism for its own sake. It was propaganda by deed. The surviving sailors became his heralds, spreading terror throughout the Caribbean. The next time a ship saw Lowe's flag, the crew already knew the price of resistance wasn't death, but something far worse. But even this machine of terror was designed for combat at a distance. What if an enemy already had you by the throat? For that moment, every pirate had one last chance saved in reserve, the sea dagger or dirk. It wasn't worn openly, but hidden in a belt or boot. It was Plan B. If the cutlass was an assault rifle, the dirk was your concealed ankle holster pistol. You hoped you wouldn't need it, but you were glad it was there. Interestingly, many pirate codes explicitly forbade using daggers to settle disputes on board, which shows just how treacherous and personal this weapon was considered. The chaos of battle often devolved into a desperate close-quarters grapple. At that moment, an axe or cutlass is useless. There's no room to swing. But a short dagger is ideal. It was used for quick, vicious stabs to vulnerable spots, the armpits, neck, or groin. Many dirks had blades with a triangular or diamond-shaped cross-section. This made them terrible for cutting, but perfect for stabbing. They easily penetrated thick clothing and left a wound that was difficult to close and bled profusely. It was a tool for delivering a single, fatal blow in a clinch. And once again, you're on the deck. A huge sailor has grabbed you, his hands tightening around your neck. Your cutlass hangs uselessly. You can't breathe. Your hand finds the familiar hilt at your belt. One short, precise thrust into your opponent's side, and his grip loosens. This is what the dirk was for, not for fighting, but for surviving in the embrace of death. The dirk wasn't a weapon. It was an eject button, the final argument in a dispute with fate when all other bets were off. It was a personal guarantee that you would never be completely defenseless. We have delved into an arsenal of brutality and desperation, but behind all this chaos lay a cold, pragmatic system of survival. It can be boiled down to 3 simple, yet brutal, rules. Rule number 1, improvise or die. Your best arsenal is what surrounds you. The victor is not the one with the better blade, but the one who thinks faster. The historian Marcus Rediker called the pirate ship a hydrocracy, a democracy on water. But in battle, it became a weapons factory, where every object was instantly reimagined as a tool for survival. Rule number 2, effectiveness over elegance. Forget honor and fancy techniques. The goal is to disable your opponent as quickly as possible. A blow to the knee, a handful of sand in the eyes, a smash to the face with a sword guard. All means were fair. In modern military theory, this is called asymmetrical warfare. When you are weaker, you don't play by the strong's rules. You hit where it hurts, in ways the enemy doesn't expect. Pirates were masters of asymmetrical combat. And rule number 3, fear is your greatest ally. Defeat the enemy in his mind before the blades even cross. This is the same principle used by the Vikings and the Mongol hordes. A reputation runs ahead of the army. By the time an enemy saw Blackbeard's flag, they weren't fighting a crew of 100 men, but thousands of bloody rumors and legends. So what separated the victor from the victim in the bloody chaos of close combat? Not the quality of the steel, but an animalistic will to live, multiplied by brutal pragmatism. The winner was the one who was ready at any second to cast aside all rules and use absolutely anything to win. This was the difference between a guard dog and a hungry wolf. The dog is trained to fight by the rules. The wolf has nothing to lose and will tear with its teeth, claws, anything it can to survive. The pirates were the wolves of the ocean. And now, the main question for you. Having gone through this entire arsenal, what do you consider the truly more terrifying weapon in a pirate's hands? A sharply honed boarding axe, or a simple, heavy belaying pin ripped from the deck in a fit of rage? Write just one word in the comments: Axe or pin? Let's see what wins, calculated brutality or pure desperation. The axe is a predator's weapon, designed to kill. The pin is the weapon of a cornered animal, fighting for its life. Which is more terrifying? The choice is yours.